All right.
The streets have never been more clean of trash.
This is for the third time. Welcome back to the Uppsala Podcast. We are back from vacation, and they're chucking because I'm having technical issues on my part.
We asked you for one thing, man. One thing. The technical shit.
It's too much.
That's what one thing is make the whole production work. Why couldn't you do that? Come on.
Yeah, we're just here to talk, man.
I'm gonna go on a strike. I'm gonna go on the writer's strike.
You think this? If you write this, listen. This is not scripted. This is scripted. You should run.
Yep. But we're gonna be talking next week about Samhain because it's coming up, and this ties to Halloween. Bunch of history behind it, along with how to practice it from a Gothar's perspective. We're going to be trying to tailor it as more of a presentation instead of a conversation, but for this week you have to indulge us on our favorite stories, and we're going to give each of our favorite stories each episode from a different each story for a different episode, but we're going to be starting off with White Wolf and his favorite story, The Lay of Rig. I know, big surprise, it's with Heimdall, his favorite god. Sigvidir, do you have anything to say when it comes to The Lay of Rig before we let the reins off on White Wolf?
Yes, I do.
And if that sounded pre-recorded and scripted, it's probably because I've done it 3 times.
And I'm going to do this again. I'm surprised White Wolf's story isn't Lokasana and Loki's flighting, because it's all about Loki. And we all know his relationship with Loki is a beautiful, blossoming thing.
And it's recorded for all the public to hear.
I wouldn't do the flighting of Loki because, frankly, I'd have to hear Loki's opinion too many times, and I don't like that. I better like my opinion. I can't stand his. All right.
See, you're so close. It's the same thing.
It's like saying islands are so close. The only thing that separates them is an ocean. Like, come on. Come on. That was a fairly good analogy.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, are the continents islands? There's really big islands.
Yes.
What would it would depend where Canada. That's not a continent. When it gets to the islands, it goes to the northern.
Well, Australia is an island and a continent.
Yeah.
Same thing with I was going to say Alaska, but wrong. Antarctica, and then maybe Africa. There's got to be some water going between there somewhere.
I wonder if it's like a size comparison. Like, there's a certain size where it stops being an island and starts becoming a continent.
I think that would be Australia.
Like a tugboat, and then it would be like a destroyer.
Well, we're 3 minutes in. Yeah. We already went off on our first tangent of continents and islands.
Okay. Now
I'm going to let White Wolf go on his shit here while I figure out what the difference is between a continent and an island.
There we go. Kick us off, White Wolf.
You know, for being awful worldly, we are pretty ignorant morons. One of my favorite stories is The Lay of Rig. Now, I did pull my edda out because while it is one of my favorite stories, I don't want to misrepresent it. And I know I'm going to in some capacity because it's just my favorite story, not my favorite quote-unquote Bible verse, so I don't memorize it. I don't just want to read it, but that's a lot. So...
I mean, we have to fill an hour and a half in somewhere.
Dude, I don't know if I'm in the right state of mind that I could read this all the way through.
I was right. It is a size comparison. Greenland is the largest island in the world. Australia is the smallest continent. That is where that split happened. Anything Greenland or smaller is considered an island. Anything Australia or bigger is considered a continent.
So that means Antarctica is bigger than Australia?
That considers it a continent, yes. I mean, in reality, Antarctica and the Arctic Circle are just ice walls that surround Midgard. So,
Right. So, okay, that's cool. Uh, not even gonna pursue that thought process.
The lay of Rig.
Lay of Rig. I don't know where to start with this. This is just a great story. Let's see if I can find at least a little synopsis of how well it goes. I'm just gonna start reading. I don't give a fuck. It is told by men in olden tales that one of the gods, whose name was Heimdall, fared forth along the seashore until he came up to a farm. Right, so Heimdall's walking down the beach because his life's really hard, and he found a farm. There, he called himself Rig. The following poem treats of this tale. I'm just gonna do this. It's gonna happen. I can't read out loud for crap, so this is gonna be a nightmare.
I mean, it's kind of, it would be an amazing topic, like a like a title. Why Wolf reads the Lay of Rig.
White Wolf attempts to read a book is what it's gonna say.
No, I'll do you more justice behind that. Already.
and Raven and Sigvidir Ulfar roast him on the sidelines.
Yes. Check chats for details. All right, so let's set this up. In olden times, say they. Oh, I'm sorry. So when I'm reading this is going to be in the Poetic Edda from Liam Hollander. The Jackson Crawford are probably a better one for this specific podcast in its sense of phrasing, but I enjoy this one a lot. So it's going to be sort of Old Englishy, but not entirely. So I apologize, but I didn't write it, so I shouldn't apologize. In olden times, say they, on earth's paths green, there wended his way a wise god ancient. Rugged and mighty, Rig was he hight. I mean, it was Rig. That's what that meant. I'll just try and translate. Walked unwearied in middle ways, to a dwelling he came, was a door bolted. All right, so came to a farm. In gan he go, on the ground was a fire. At a hearth hoary, I mean, it is what it says, but it's just a big hearth. State husband and wife. A and Edda. Oh. In old headgear. So if you walk into the place, husband and wife kill him. Named I will say I. It's A with an accent and an I, so we'll say I. And Edda. Well knew Rig wisely to counsel on middle seat.
Hold on, I raised my hand. So, in this one, I and Edda are actually the modern Icelandic terms for grandfather and grandma. These are elderly people. Just want to throw that in there, just for a little bit of clarification and kind of a cool little snippet, because that's how we're going to run this shit, because we're just going to pick this apart as we go.
And a quick moment to that is the Poetic Edda would imply that it's poetry from your grandparents. Just saying. It's almost like it's tales from your ancestors. Like,
Magical.
well knew Rig wisely to counsel, on middle seat he sat him down, betwixt the twain of the topped benched him. All right, let me help with that one. So, wise to counsel. When somebody's visiting, they're very welcome. They want to be talked to. So they sat him in the middle seat between the husband and wife to engage in a conversation. And that's how you kind of treated them. Guests coming in, even the strangers, you food, water, a nice seat, whatever else. So that's what this happened there. Then took Edda a thick loaf heavy. Oh my god, this is actually kind of hard. Then took Edda a thick loaf heavy of bread, hard baked and full of bran. So there's it's a piece of bread. All right, calm down. A bowl then bore on the board Edda, filled with the broth of a boiled calf meat. So he's basically getting soup and bread, which is kind of a fantastic, it's like stew and bread. It's like a fantastic combination.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, to put this in perspective, when they talk about bread that's hard baked, full of bran, wheat, the bran flakes that you eat like cereal, That is the middle piece of a grain of wheat. When they process wheat, it gets taken out. It's essentially the seed itself. So this is cheaper than cheap food. This is what they had, what they could get a hold of. That's what this is premising.
I mean, a little foretelling, but it would make sense for this more specific family because of what the child's going to be a part of. Little foretelling.
Yeah, and the food in this story, a lot of things tie into what that becomes. So that's very accurate. It would be that same thing. So you get in the stew and the bread. Then, well knew Rig, wise to counsel, he rose up thence, ready for sleep. On the middle bedstead, his berth he made, betwixt the twain, off of the thought laid him. So this is that same phrasing as before. So while this is not a common practice now, well, probably is somewhere, guests sleep with, like, the wife or the husband, like, they sleep all together in the same bed. This guy, you don't even know him, you don't know strangers, all these things, and a lot of times they share beds. Hospitality, survivability, call it whatever you want to, in any context, that's just how it happens. So he is now laying between them. And there stayed he 3 days together. Then walked unwearied in middle ways. Moon's full 9 went meanwhile by. All right, so this a little bit to unpack. So he was there for 3 days together, or 3 days. Whatever they did, they did. And then it says to the point where he left, unwearied in the middle ways. Moon's full 9 went meanwhile by. That's talking about new moons, not nights. So kind of a new moon of the month. So this is saying 9 months went by, not 9 days went by. So that's kind of some miscommunication or a misunderstanding. Go ahead.
So there's actually a cool part of this that I want to bring up. In today's world, doctors often prescribe that women are pregnant for 40 weeks. That's the standard thing that they say. Now, they do that because they say, oh yeah, you'll be pregnant for 9 months, and then they tack on 2 more weeks. Typically, it's kind of cool. When you actually dig into the statistics, women will normally give birth almost exactly 9 months after conception. 9 moons after conception. That 2 weeks that they give is because of that gray area as to that little bit of time. But because of the moon's effect on water and how it pushes and pulls and does all its stuff that we know about thanks to the tides and science and blah, 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 it's almost exactly at the same time that the moon is in the same position 9 moons later. Kind of cool. Cool little tidbit. Figured that out a while ago because I was curious.
Awesome. Women are witches and they brew babies, and I don't understand it. Anyway, so he went by for 9 months. Gave Edda birth to a boy child then. In clouds she swathed the swarthy skinned one. Thrall, they called him, and cast on him water, which is basically the old Germanic baptism ceremony. So this is kind of one of those rough translations of like, would that have happened pre or however we want to view that, but that's what it says, so that's why I read it. Cast on him water. Dark was his hair and dull was his eyes. On his hand the skin was scraggy and wrinkled. Nasty his nails. His knuckles gnarled, his fingers thick, his face ugly, his back hulky, his heels were long. So it's a weird combination of like the meanest thing you could say to somebody. They say he looks like Quasimodo from Notre Dame from the distance. And his name is Thrall, right? He began to grow and gain in strength. The times took him to try this might, to bind vast ropes, burdens to pack, to bear faggots home, and whole day long.
Not that kind of faggot. I don't know what that means.
What?
That is not what that means, goddammit. This is a bundle of sticks. This is the traditional word of what a bundle of sticks was. I don't want to get canceled right now, so we're gonna preface all of this by saying that.
Yeah, this one gets dicey. Basically, this is describing a thrall, a boy named Thrall, who looked like this hunchback little Quasimodo guy, was this pure ox. Like, he just became hugely strong, super built. You know, do things like bear faggots home all day and all sorts of stuff. So that was that. Came to his cot a crooked-legged wench. So this is still discussing Thrall. Sorry. Came to his cot a crooked-legged wench, where her soul's dirty and sunburnt her arms. Her nose bent downward. Her name was Fear. Fear is drudge, like to drudge something up, like to get nasty and build it. That's drudge. So cute name. That's fun. Ooh, the names of these people. On middle seat, she sat her down. By her side did sit the son of the house. Whispered and laughed and lay together, Thrall and Thea, whole days through. In their hut, happy, they gave a brood. Or they had a brood. They had a brood. I weened they were height, haygiver, howler, bastard. I'm sorry, I weened their height. These were their names. Haygiver, howler, bastard, sluggard, bent back and punch. Stumpy. I knew a kid we called Stumpy growing up. That's really mean now. Stinker, stable boy, swarthy, longshanks, and lout. Lots of super fun names. The Brady bunch of failures. They laid fences, put dung in the swine, herded the goats, and grubbed up peat. So they were winners. They did all the digging, legwork, everything with that. It was a terrible, terrible, awful time. Didn't get that. Their daughters were, and this is good, Drudge and Daggletail, Slattern, Serving Maid, and Cinderwench. Stout Leg, Shorty, Dumpy and Dumpy, Spindleshanks Eck, and Sputterer. If you like memorize this, you could throw some shade someone's way.
So
like, this is
I want to bring this up. I want to say this just real quick. In the rap culture of the United States, there was one in there. What was it, White Wolf? That rappers will call women, and they did throughout like the entire 90s to early 2000s.
Are you asking me to say what rappers call women right now?
Yeah. There's one in there.
I choose not to incriminate myself.
I will do it. Shorty. They straight up in this, they're like, this is an insult 100% of the time. And now when you, yep. Then there was another one too. Like, you know when you call kids stinker? Like, oh, you little stinker. Yep. You're calling them a son of a thrall. So really, you're just insulting yourself. Fix your shit.
Correct, and that's what this is thence are sprung the breed of thralls. So from the thralls, from the muck, the mire, the literal pit and thur, came these names of things which were people at the time. That sounds terrible. So that was the first family. That was the first farmhouse. That was fun. That's where Thrall. At this staff Rig strode. So back to Rig now. He's nowhere near this. And straight forth fared. To a dwelling he came, was a door ajar. Slightly open. I'm putting it out there. Door ajar. In gan he go. On the ground was a fire. State husband and wife, their worth. State husband and wife there, with their work busy. Going to a different place, has a different door. They're busy at work. They're not just sitting on the dirt. A weaver's beam out of the wood he shaped. His beard was brushed and banged. His hair in kirtle-tight fittings were planks on the floor. Like two different sentences, kind of. Were tight fitting, space, or planks on the floor. Seems like a really weird stab at the end. So it's a nicer place. There's wood on the floor. It's not just dirt. He's creating things. He's fairly well kept. Probably better than so it's good. He looks nice. The good wife sate and
White Wolf.
Hold up. So his beard was brushed and banged his hair. That is essentially meaning braided. That's where the Dutch braid idea comes from. Is his hair was braided. May not have been brushed daily, may not have been cared for the same way that a very rich person would, and it definitely wasn't in matted locks like the previous family was, more than likely. This was well cared for, but in a utilitarian sense. This was intentionally made and done for working in a better environment or a different environment. So yeah, I just want to throw that out there.
As like a, not to throw shade on the previous family, but people that contributed towards society.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. A little more active in the community, a little more base driven. Makes sense. The good wife sate and swayed her distaff, braided the yarn to use for weaving. With a snood on her head, and a smock on her breast, on her neck a kerchief and clasps on her shoulders. Afi and Amma owned that house. So a snood is a hood. Obviously, everything else can kind of be translated. Snaps, very nice, or not very nice, but nicer looking clothing. She was well kept. She had a job of sorts. She was making strings to weave yarn with. Like that's cool. That's a good thing, especially back then. So this is describing kind of that next family he ran into, if that makes sense. Steven, did you have someone?
No.
Oh, sorry. Okay, cool. Well knew Rig wisely to counsel. On the midst seat he sat him down. Betwixt the twain of the top benched him. Right. So sounds like business as usual. Then this is kind of a weird one because it's all in parentheses and there's a lot that's missing from this book. It says, then took Amma, and then there's about 20 different dots. And then it says, a full trencher on the table she put with boiled calf meat, the best she had. So this whole thing's kind of translated differently, and this is kind of where they came up with in the time that happened. So anyway. Well knew Rig, wisely to counsel, he rose up thence, ready for sleep. On the middle bedstead his berth he made, betwixt the twain and the top laid him. Again, business as usual for Rig. Just getting it. And there stayed he 3 days together, and walked unwearied in middle ways. Moon's full 9 went meanwhile by. So, found another family, stayed with them for a long time, slept with the wife, however that works, and 9 months later, here we go. Gave Amma birth to a boy child then, Carl. They called him. Clothed him in linen, ruddy his hue, and rapid his eyes. Then gan he grow and gain in strength, tamed the oxen and tempered plowshares, timbered houses and barns for the hay, fashioned carts and followed the plow. So this is a much more like a blue-collar farm boy style, essentially. Like really getting that shit done, but building. It's a little more masculine, it's a little stronger, a little more well-maintained. He's building as opposed to just like trudging. He's productive. A bride they brought him with a bunch of key dangling. In goatskin kirtle gave her to Carl. Stonser was she height, and sate under veil. So unlike the other one before, put in a veil, a little bit more of an elegant, hasn't been defiled or whatever else. This one is Sanser usually describes as a daughter-in-law, which has been described as of Thor as the bride in Thrym's Fithon. I forgot what I'm trying to say. I forgot what story I'm trying to say. So this was the same thing that was said and described as Thor. So it was a daughter-in-law who was supposed to be the representation of the wife or the bride. Anyway, unstated under veil. They reared them, and rings bestowed. Their linen they spread, and the larder stopped. So I almost feel bad that I keep stopping, but rings bestowed is a very different thing then than it is now. Back then, when you're doing, we'll say thrall, like the story we're talking about. Thrall, they didn't have ceremonies, they didn't have representations because they couldn't afford things like medals or do things like that. So it was a common just, this is my wife, this is my husband, as opposed to representations. The higher up you get in society at the time, the more things you'll have. Even if it's a brass or a copper ring, whatever else, that's still a little bit more higher society. So saying that a ring is bestowed is showing their kind of higher hierarchy in society itself. So a little snippet there. If you see rings, it's generally referring to a higher authority or a higher whatever. In their homesteads happy, they had a brood, hight man and yeoman, master goodman, husbandman, farmer, franklin, crofter, boundbeard, steepbeard, broad, swain, and smith. So broad sounds like fat. It's not. It's a burly, proud farmer. It's like a yoked out dude. Like, yeah, it's a good thing. You're not like broad, like the side of a barn, like you're this big fat dude. Like, you're broad. Like,
it's like you know how the actual depiction of Thor, he's not a bodybuilder. He's strongest man strong. Like, he eats a shit ton of calories. He's got the beer gut and everything, but he can lift 10 times what a bodybuilder can weigh because his muscles are not used for show, they're actually used for practicality. This
like Hafthor Bjornsson or the Mount in fucking Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
That's broad.
Another, good depiction would be Country Strong.
Yeah, corn-fed motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. He looks like someone I'd want to watch football with. So yes, that sounds about right to me. By other names were known their daughters. Woman, gentlewoman, wife, bride, lady, haughty, maiden, hussif, and dame. Thence are come the kin of carls. So again, this is the representation of this middle to upper middle class, or however you want to view that kind of hierarchy, family, and these are the names that follow it. Many brides, many wives, many women, many gentlewomen, things like that. Even dame being a very prestigious, I'll say title of sorts in England and whatever else. This is where they come from in that sense. And we go back to Rig. At his staff, Rig strode steadfastly on. A hall he saw then, was southward the door. So being south in that time is a good omen. Having your door to the south it's just like more of an inviting, happy energy. Total loss where it was southward of the door, raised on high with a ring in the doorpost. He strode in straightway, was strong on the floor, stayed there a good folk gazed at each other, father and mother with their fingers playing.
They were
It can also be like, if there's a fire on the ground, they can be like shadow puppets or something. Is kind of my thoughts with that.
So
they're having fun. Is the point.
When you said having your entry to your house on the south, I was thinking of my house, and my door is actually on the south, in the south and cardinal direction. And I was, Sigvidir, is yours?
Mine's to the west.
White Wolf?
I just moved. I have to think about it.
Come on, you military man.
You could just whip out your phone and use a compass, but you did do land nav, so I'm expecting more.
You said whip out your and then paused. It's like more west, like a northwest facing.
Really? So I'm the only one that's abiding by the stories. That's weird.
I didn't build the damn place I live.
Hold on. That was not part of my criteria for buying a house. I'd rather have a place the west anyways. I get to see the sunsets out my front door and my front window. Screw you, man.
I get to see the
Water.
sunrise.
Okay, that was great. This is a great conversation.
We're doing great.
When I build a house, I'm not going to put it on the south. I'm not going to lie. It'll probably be on the north side. I don't care. But I'm just saying, in this story, it is a good thing, and it calls that out. Wow, okay. On the bench he sate, and bowstring twining, bent the elm wood, and arrows shafted. So this is a bow that's made of it. So again, on the bench he sate, on bowstring twining, bent the elm wood, and arrows shafted. So this person is making bows and arrows. State the lady looked at her arms, stroked the linen, straightened her sleeves. Was a brooch on her breast, and a bonnet on her head, a long train of silk, and sark all blue. We've had a lot of conversation before in our schools and studies on the color blue at the time being a very royal color because it's one of the hardest ones to have made at the time. So anything that's a fabric that has like a blue, and that's why it's like a royal blue or that kind, is just very, very high class.
And it's another interesting thing is, on the top of my head, cannot confirm or deny, but Jackson Crawford did write his doctoral on the color blue in Old Norse, and I want to say his findings were there isn't a color, that there isn't a name for blue. It's like midnight or navy, but there's no blue. That's just on the top of my head.
Like all the descriptions of it, but not the core color.
I think so.
There was also something about the ocean too, where it was called the Blood Sea or something like that, because they couldn't figure out what color it was. So they resorted to Amir's body part that created the sea, or the part of his body. So it was the Blood Sea, because that's where the sea came from, because they couldn't say it was the deep blue or anything like that, because they didn't have a name for the color blue.
Which happens to be Heimdall's mother. So, way to run this into Heimdall.
So proud of you.
Thank you. In
the other thing
Disney,
I was going to say, real quick though, is the color blue. The color purple was also in that same category at the time due to needing that blue tint. So where you get royal blue and royal purple, the reason those colors were so rare was because of their rarity. We didn't have names for the color blue for a long time because what was the point? When it was so hard to come by that it was rare enough that it was probably just called the royal color or royal hued.
nice. With the ocean part in Disney, the Little Mermaid, her sisters and herself, or her sisters, represent all of, what is it? I want to say it's the 9th season. I know I'm just saying the wrong thing, but they represent all the different seas, all the 7 seas, and the premise was that they represent all the 7 seas, and her mother, who was dead, represented the Dead Sea. So it's this whole like dynamic that's the same concept. Where you deal with Heimdall and his mothers, it's kind of that. But that was some Disney plug.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's not the only time Disney's ever taken from the Norse paganism. Another example is Frozen, but maybe that's another topic for another time. Maybe I need to watch Frozen again.
No, I think I've got that one memorized at this point, not gonna lie.
For me, that's Bolt.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, with my daughter, I think I have Frozen pretty well down pat. Both 1 and 2.
I've seen Frozen like once. I've never seen Bolt. I don't know. I don't know.
I don't have kids. It's not surprising.
I don't think, like, if I do, it's like on an airplane if it's a short enough but long enough awkward flight that I'm like, I'm just gonna put something on. I don't want to get invested. So that's how I see movies. In case anybody's curious. I haven't done describing the woman yet. Was her brow brighter, her breast lighter, her neck whiter than whitest snow?
Oh my god.
Again, got Sigvidir's attention. So she was pale, which sounds weird at the time because now you're like, oh, tan is exotic and this and this, but the paler you are, it almost would imply that you did zero work outside. You've always spent your time indoors. You've never had to go outside and fend for yourself. So being pale would almost be more like a luxury, like you're more spoiled. So like Rain Raven would be like a god to them. So pale was good. Yeah.
He's a Jotun. Hold on. He's a Jotun. I'll throw that out there.
This makes me think of, the white supremacy and everything like that, how they put the color into it. And I wonder if this is another stance that they stand on.
Maybe this might be one of those sticks that fuels their fire. I see. Heimdall is unfortunately a very big part of that for them, and it's very misconstrued, but whatevs. Well knew Rig wisely to counsel. On middle seat he sat him down. Betwixt the twain of the topped he benched him. I'm getting way better at reading that verse now. I'll say stanza because I meant to say stanza. I'm sorry. Of bleached flax then, a broided cloth did mother take, and a table covered. A light bake loaf she laid on a table, of wheaten meal white and thin. So this is saying she set the table with a tablecloth, with much higher quality bread. A full trencher on the table she put, silver plated, and set forth then flitches of bacon and staked fowl also. There was wine in a crock where the cups gold plated. They drank and chatted till the day was ended. So this would be a great place. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah, like chicken, bacon, potatoes, fresh bread. Like this is a full-on fucking meal. This is great.
Yeah, like that sounds awesome. Never mind. I'm getting chicken made for me right now. And spaghetti squash, but I like that part more. Okay. Well could Rig wisely counsel. He rose up thence, ready for sleep. On the middle bestead, his berth he made. Betwixt the twain of a thought he laid them. So we banged them. And then stayed he 3 days together. Then walked unwearied in middle ways. Full 9 months went meanwhile by. So this is a different judgment of time. So I wonder if this is a family that uses a calendar as opposed to moon cycles.
They have access to be able to track time that way instead of just going by the moons, which is a station of having probably something like a sundial or being able to track the days instead of the season. That is a very, very important part of this in the idea of nowadays we all take it for granted because we have our phones that tell us the date, but without our phones to tell us what day it was, we'd probably all forget. Shortly, within like a month, if all technology quit working and we didn't all just like run to the grocery store to pick up a fucking calendar, we would lose all track of time so fast.
I have all this technology. I thought yesterday was Sunday for like 14 hours, even though I was constantly reminded that it was not. every like 10 minutes, I thought it was a Sunday. I have no idea what day it is ever. So
the only reason I keep track is for children's school, and that's when I know the days of the week.
And do they still do like short day and like popcorn day and all that crap?
I mean, you have to ask Sigvidir on that. Mine's still in preschool.
Yeah, they do early out still. At least in some states. I know not all states do. I think it's mostly on the East Coast where they say get fucked and they don't do that.
I mean, but mine's Tuesday through Thursday for a couple hours. That's it.
Oh yeah, mine's 5 days a week.
The United States education system is the last one in the world to have a short day. All right, we're already on the short bus of society as far as intellect goes. So
short buses are lit. They have a stereo system and everything, and it's amazing.
Why do you know that?
Because
he's thinking of a tour bus.
No. So when I was in like 6th grade to 7th grade and everything, I had to go to middle school. A different middle school because my parents hated me and wanted me to go to a charter school. And for band, I had to take a short bus to go practice.
God, this story is a saga of its own. You were hated by your parents, went to a different school, rode a short bus, and were in band?
I love band.
Yeah, I'm sure they called it a charter school. I'm pretty sure that was a special kid school, buddy.
It was a tarded school. You just thought it said charter school.
I mean, to this day, if the school ever burns down, I'm probably on a watch list because I've said it publicly so many times.
Sick.
Okay. Talk for like 10 more seconds. I need to go grab another beer.
So yeah.
Oh no, wait. Hold on. Clyde's in Burger Hall.
What? Oh, he has delivered.
I gotta go get my own beer now because that was rude. I'll be right back.
Your DoorDash didn't work?
Honey, the dishwasher's broken. Just kidding. We love you, human on the other end.
Yes, we do.
And I would never say that about women outside of a joking manner. I promise. I love my wife to death and I do the dishes, so whatever.
Yeah.
95% of the time, I'm the one that does the dishes and the cooking, so.
She does the cooking. I do the grilling.
I like it. It's actually a lot of fun. I enjoy it.
I hate cooking.
That's okay.
I like eating.
I hate laundry.
I'm the one that washes and, gets all the laundry clean and everything. But when it comes to folding and putting it away, I'm shit at it.
Yeah, I can't do any of it. I hate it entirely. Well, it is bane of my existence.
My wife doesn't like how I fold the clothes. So in the end, it's I just hang up the shirts and she folds everything else.
I feel that. I get in trouble all the time for the way that I do things in the house. Like, yeah, get wrecked. You're not allowed to do this anymore. Like, you're done.
Darn. It's not a calculated risk.
I am the opposite. I run a very successful retail store. My folds are legit. Like, it is crisp. It is good. Denim folded certain ways. Shirts just like...
Well, I would expect nothing less.
Yeah, and I'm very OCD, so like I clean the living shit out of this place. Like, so I'm just screwed. I'm never not working because, to your point, I'm like, I want to clean, and she's like, yeah, you fucking do. And that was the end of that. But no, my folds are good.
I mean, if your folds weren't good, you'd probably get fired. Way back.
Not anymore. He's in management.
I mean, he doesn't keep track of his own schedule.
I'm the one that makes other people train other people to my standards. So, like,
I mean, but if you had no employees, you wouldn't be in management. So you have to thank them for their service, for your shitty paycheck.
Yes. On average, my assistants actually make more money than me because I'm salary and they're hourly and I make them work overtime, so they make more money than I do. So that's stupid.
Makes sense.
So last note before we go back
me,
on the story, don't go salary unless it's like...
I was gonna say, nowhere in these songs that say, don't go salary, kids don't go salary.
Don't go salary unless it's like 3 times what you were previously making.
They'll make you work 3 times harder. Don't even listen to them.
I would argue, unless it's a 6-figure income, don't touch salary.
You're telling me someone's like, I'll give you $90,000 flat out all the time. You could be on COVID for 4 months or whatever, still make the same thing. And you'd be like, nah, fuck you.
No, he's actually getting it out of that situation currently.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Unless it's a 6-figure income, do not trade your time for money.
And that's
Don't
not
do it.
including like benefits and everything. Take home
Yeah,
right.
6-figure income. Out.
Don't
Yeah.
let them tell you it's 6 figures. You figure out it's 6 figures. When they say it's 6 figures, they've calculated everything that it costs them to put gas in their truck for your existence.
Mhm.
You're worth like 50,000 to them at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I say like take home, it's after taxes. Because I hate how people's like, yeah, it's a $70,000 job, but in actuality, you're taking home 60.
Yeah, no, fuck that.
I hate that. I hate how most things are calculated by gross.
It's
Anyway.
like there's like it's almost like there's like 3 tiers of society that dictate who makes more money than the others. Like thralls and carls and
The
this
next
one
one,
about
The other one, right? I think we're getting to the other one.
Yeah.
What was it? Stanza 34 or 33?
Uh-huh. 30. Oh, technically 33. So you want to know where society came from? It's this horse shit. It's literally someone fucking someone is where society came from. Like,
according to us.
Yeah, totally that. Well could Rig wisely counsel. He rose up thence, ready for sleep. On the middle bedstead his berth he made, betwixt the twain of the top they laid him. I already read that. And there stayed he 3 days. Oh, we already talked about that because that was 9 months, and I called the calendar.
Yeah.
All right, I guess.
Sorry, 35. Yeah, I was right.
Okay. The sun-born mother, in silk they swathed him, sprinkled water on him, and called him Earl. When was his hair flaxen, and fair-hued his cheek. His eyes awfully, like an otter's, blazed. Blazed. Go ahead.
Adder is what you're looking for, not otter.
You gonna say otter? Oh yeah, adder. I was stuck on Earl because Earl I know is a good thing. I just think that show my life, or my name is Earl, and it just like ruins it. It's like Joe Dirt. Like,
I love that show.
like I'm like, they
Adder.
call him Earl. Like what?
An adder, for those that don't know, is a very venomous snake. If it bites you, you will probably die unless you get anti-venom shortly thereafter.
Fun
So an
fact.
adder's blazed. So, yeah.
Fun fact, it takes like 15 venom snakes. They're, milking their venom to make 1 anti-venom.
Cool. I did not know that.
It's roughly like 15-ish on the top of my head.
I'm sure it depends on the snake and the quantity that each snake produces, but yeah, roughly that would make sense. Yeah, okay. Cool.
Gotta love YouTube.
YouTube University, baby.
Yeah. It's where I got my
I'm gonna talk about
master's.
Earl.
Oh yeah, Earl.
Earl. All right, damn. Up grew Earl within the hall. Gan bucklers wheeled and bowstring fastened. Gan the elmwood bend and arrow shaft. Gan hurl the spear and speed the lance. Gan hunt the hounds and horses ride. Gan brandish swords and swim in the sea. A few things in there could be kind of confusing. The first one is fairly straightforward, but Gan bucklers wield and bowstrings fastened. Oftentimes bucklers were shields that were fastened on your arm, your forearm, bicep, whatever else. So this is saying he had a shield while he had a bow with him. So he wasn't just out with the bow with nothing else. He also had protection. That's kind of like a, being able to have those injuries are, great at the time. Anyone on that one? We good? Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
Out of woodlands came Rig walking. That was twice. That's how it's written. I'm not just stuttering. And taught him runes. His own name gave him an heir and son. Bade him make his own and Udal lands. Udal lands is, which I just read in the footnotes, that is the lands entailed by primogeniture. I was not ready for that word.
Essentially by right of lineage.
So I was not ready for that word. That was, by his lands he bestowed upon him, essentially what's going on here. And her son bade him make his own the Udal lands and olden manors. He dauntless rode through darkling woods, over frosty fells to a faraway hall. Shields he shattered and shafts he hurled, brandished his sword and swiftly rode. He wakened war and warriors slew. With a wound red weapon he won him land. A wound red weapon. It says
it's wound.
Oh, yeah, that's wound.
Yes.
I feel like it's like he winding it around, killing everybody.
I mean, maybe. Matter of fact,
whatever. So this guy was a damn warrior and took people's lives for a living, like a Viking, which is a job, not a race. He made himself master. He made himself master of manners 18. Wow, that's cool. Gan shared his wealth and shower it on all. Silver and gold and slender steeds, squandered arm rings and scattered golds. Meaning lavish generosity was one of the princely virtues. So at the time, which would be cool now, a princely virtue is wealthy sharing the wealth with literally everybody. Buying people horses, helping them out with wealth, or giving them money, things like that. This is a very princely thing to do because it shows disposable income. It doesn't show, I'm rich, come get away from me. It's like, I'm so rich, you can have some, and I'm still good. So this is a disposable income status.
I also want to point out right here, in contrast to the Grimnismal, right? Yeah, Grimnismal. This is the way that a king or a prince should behave, versus the way that the king in the Grimnismal did behave, and then he was dead. And then he died.
Yes, Faye was a very important rune. His herald drove on dew-wet paths and came to the hall where Hersir, meaning lord or a chieftain of a district, dwelled. A daughter had he, dainty-fingered, fair-haired and wise, was she hight Erna, meaning the efficient. So this is the cream of the crop. This is as good as it gets. This is good. It's efficient. For OCD people out there, Erna is now their new pet name for their favorite person because it means efficient. For her hand they asked, and home drove her. Gave her to Earl, gowned in linen. They lived together and loved each other, and many children they lived cheerfully. So we're about to get into the names again. Boy was the oldest, original. Bairn the second, then issue and child. Heir, meaning H-E-I-R, not A-I-R. Heir, youth, and squire. Offspring and lad, the sport did learn. Son of Sion, swimming and tables. Tables being a board game. It's kind of like chess. It's in my closet. Sigvidir Ulfar. What do we play? It's Hepatopple.
Hepatopple.
Yeah. So that's a little dig. Look up Hepatopple sometime. Super fun. Son of Sion, swimming and tables. Kund one was called, and Kon the youngest. Immediately faster than that. The last two are etymology. Akin and signify noble descent is what Kund and Khan. So the Khan family, like Genghis Khan, things like that. That's the Khan family. I know. This story is big. Kund and Khan was the youngest. Up within hall grew earls' children. Spear shafts they shook. With shields they fended. Swift steeds bestrode, and straightened arrows. The Khan only could carve runes. This is literally what it sounds like, making runes. Now it's some metaphor. Testing a life-keeping runes to bring forth babes, birth runes he knew, to dull sword edges and to calm the sea. So only this offspring of the family would learn the runes from Heimdall, inherited this ability. Which again, when you talk about Genghis Khan and his etymology and everything with it, being able to carve runes would not be outside of that wheelhouse. Anyway. Foul speech he knew and quenched fires, could soothe sorrows and sick mind heal. In his arms the strength of 8 men had. So dude's ripped, and he's basically Hercules. Go ahead.
So there's one part of this that I want to bring up, and it comes up repeatedly throughout stories and sagas, both within the Poetic Edda, the Volsung saga, the saga of the Icelanders. It comes up repeatedly. The Fowl's speech, which Fowls, Fowl's speech, means he understood birds. He could speak the birds' language. Which, if those that are listening, White Wolf points to his tattoo on his arm of Sigurd the Volsung and the slaying of Fafnir, where if you ate a dragon's heart, you could learn the speech of birds. Super cool, but this becomes important because Odin also has this ability. This is a godlike ability in most minds, where Odin can understand the speech of his ravens, Hugin and Munin. That's where this kind of ties to, okay, he is a step above. Because birds fly everywhere. They see everything. They can take information to and from and back and forth, so long as you can understand them. So this is important. I just want to throw that out there. That's a huge, key phrase right there that oftentimes gets breezed over. Like, okay, he understands what birds say. What does that mean? No. That's important.
It's like Harry Potter for Slytherin.
Yeah.
Yeah. See? I can be a nerd.
You mean parcel tongue? Fucking dweeb?
Listen, I'm not. Anyway. I must tell you guys that later. It's hilarious. Anyway,
He's
now
been
we have that
practicing.
ability to... What was that?
You've been practicing parcel tongue.
Okay, well, it's, she must be Slytherin because I'm partial to her tongue. Yeah,
Wow. Wow.
Wait, doesn't
Yeah.
that mean she's a snake?
Yeah, I love
Ooh.
slithers into my bed.
That's okay.
Yeah, you need
You're
to tell
in
her
so
that
much-
she's a snake.
Just get
See how that
elder
goes.
wand. No.
We're telling later.
Oh,
Heimdall.
when you guys come over, yeah.
No. It is Halloween. I will not come back from that shit if she kills me. She is witchy. I love it. Okay. Next verse. I was going to say, adding on to the conversation of knowing to speak to birds, he can also carve runes. So this guy is this like insanely, potentially amazing, powerful person. In runes, he rivaled Rig the Earl, being in that is his father, the son of Rig. So Rig the Earl. So it was Earl he's talking about, but he went by Rig the Earl because of his father. With wiles he wared, outwitting him, thus got for himself a gain to have, the name of Rig and runic lore. So that's big. He wants to take the name Rig, which is like taking a family name. Back then you had to earn that kind of thing. And especially in this context, if they realized what or who Rig was, that would be like saying Odin's sin or Odin's son, which you see all the damn time. But this one would be like a legitimate grandfather lineage to this name of a god. So that's big. Rode Con the young through copse and woods. Birds he snared and used bow and arrow. Then quoth a crow, croaking on branch, why snarest thou bird, scion of kings? Again, the crow talking to him because he knows bird. So he says, why snarest thou birds, scion of kings? Rather shouldn't thou ride swift horse, brandish swords, and slay foemen? There. See you on top of that. Missed the page. Oh, I had to have missed the page there. No. Have Dan the Damp, being in all probability what is that? Having Dan the Damp, a dwelling richer, and lands larger than are left to thee. Sorry, I was looking at the Dan and Damp.
So it's the Kings of Denmark is essentially what it relates to. They were supposedly High Kings of Denmark, and they were brothers, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. Essentially saying this crow is telling him, hey, why are you catching birds when you should be waging war with these people to get more? What are you doing?
Right. Yep. As it looks like, have Dan and Damp, being the kings, a dwelling richer and lands larger than are left to thee, are the skilled in steering on stormy seas, in trying swords and slaying heroes. Really saying, go get the world, it's basically yours for the taking. Don't waste your time snaring animals and killing nature. Kill your kinsmen and foes. And then it just ends. And that's the end of the race with Ring.
Yeah. So
I like that story.
Now let's dig into the overall meaning of it, at the sake of sounding terrible. This is where Rig sets forth the classes of mankind. Now, we all know, this is going to sound terrible, but I'm going to say it anyway. We all know people that more than likely will never aspire to anything. They have no drive. They have no push. Their eyes are dull, as the story puts it. They would fall into that back-breaking labor, that inevitable end, and less fortuitous lifestyle. We'll put it that way. And then we know people that have some drive. They've made a name for themselves. They're good at what they do. They're the foreman at a construction site. They're those people that have that push, that little bit of drive to push forward on their goals. They have ideas. They have these things that push them further. We know those people too. That third category, though, which Con falls into, as does Earl, those people are more and more rare in today's world. When you look around and you see people that have gone out there and taken what they want, they're willing to put themselves on the line, fight tooth and nail to accomplish their goal that they set out to do. Those are the people that we look to as leaders. They are leaders of men. They are powerful. They have the voice, the conviction, the ability to do these things. And they're not going to give up just because it gets hard. So this is where those classifications of mankind come. Now, oftentimes this story is misconstrued by white supremacists and those fucks. I'm going to say it how it is. And taken in that light. It really is. They take this as well, some people are slaves and they had swarthy skin, so no, get the fuck out of here. That's not what that means. What it means is some people have the drive to accomplish something. I've met some white supremacist people that arguably fit into that bottom category. They do fit into that bottom category. They have no drive. They have no purpose. They're just living life, and they're taking it out on anybody they can take it out on. But that's where this story gets hot and heavy real quick, is when you bring to light those kind of aspects. Because thrall, the word thrall, from that first family that Rig introduced himself, is another word for slave or servant. Now, this was not about race in any way, shape, or form in this story. In any way, shape, or form was this about race? No. Not at all. This was written in Scandinavia. While there were people of a darker skin tone in that area because of raids and stuff like that, so sure. This was a predominantly white people. Just the truth of it. So no, this is written about them, not based on skin color. This was just, some people suck. Some people are better. Some people are kings and queens. That's what this is going in. So I want to preface all that, because white supremacists are assholes. They suck.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
But, you brought up something like, yes, there, during the raids and everything, there's people of different skin color and everything like that. And, the white supremacists, they're like, well, only they can be thralls. On the contrary, you go back to when they sailed over to Finland and, a couple years into the quote Viking age, there's DNA evidence stating that, they married and brought back indigenous people, people of this land, Native Americans. And they even went back to Scandinavia area. And, they also went down to the Gulf. The next to
Mediterranean?
Greece. Yeah, the Mediterranean Sea. Thank you. The Scandinavian tribe were vast and were not just white people. And I see this story as a mentality, just like in a way Sigvidir said, it's a mentality state. Do you see yourself as a thrall? Do you see yourself with no drive? You just, you want to live out your life and not have to, or not want to amount to anything. You just, be like, hey, I'm here for a good time, not for a long time. But then you have the next stage of individuals slightly above a thrall, where they have like, yeah, I might have not been born of king status or set off with light years of experience or lineage when it comes to that, but I want to do things. I want to amount of something. I want to contribute towards society. And then you have the kings, and these are the individuals that are born of rich people, like, or well off, like in power and everything like that. They're like Elon Musk's children Joe Biden's children, Trump's children, stuff like that. Not getting political or anything, but given a stature. It's a mindset. They already have light years of experience above the middle class. They don't have to worry about, living paycheck to paycheck. They don't have to worry about that, but they have other things they have to worry about. Leading people. How do I lead a business to being profitable? Stuff like that. But something that the story doesn't say that I take to heart is an individual can go from class to class.
Yeah. I was just about to bring that up, so go for it.
Yeah. You can go from a thrall. You can start as a thrall. I have 0 drive. All right. I don't want to amount to anything. And then something happens in your life. You're like, fuck. I want to actually do something with my life. I want to, amount to something. I want to set my future up so it's better off for my family. And for me, that kind of happened when when I got in my first serious relationship, it was like, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I had no motive to do anything. But then as soon as we got in the relationship, I told myself, I need to set my family up for success. I want them to be better off than I was. And that led me to do my service in the military and stuff like that. And, I'm grateful for what I have, and what I've become, including being with you guys, being a part of New Uppsala. It's my way, and this is how I see myself. I'm middle class right now. I made a name for myself. I'm not a king, and nor do I want to be a king. Because obviously I want to be a religious leader and hold no political and everything like that. But regardless, I made a name for myself. I'm working towards goals to make things better off. And back when the story of talking about the middle class and everything like that, how I said they're contributing towards society, that's how I see it. I'm not the bottom individual. I'm not the person that is, yes sir, I'll do it. A mindless drone is how I would see it. I have thought, I have process, I have innovation, and that's how I see it. You can go from class to class to class, and going from middle to high class is 10 times harder than going from low to middle, because that would be a mindset change of going from no drive to drive versus going from drive to learning how to be a leader. That would be a more difficult change, but not saying it's not impossible.
So the other part of this that I'll bring up along those lines, this is far more based on the individual. While this story gives these guidelines and these premises that, these people have these children that have no drive, sure. Yeah, sometimes. And you are a product of your environment that you put yourself in 95% of the time. However, I cannot count the number of stories that I know of that I've seen someone that was born on the streets, literally born on the fucking main street in a homeless situation, arise from that to be a very, very powerful figure in society. That is possible. It's not so much who birthed you or the situation you're born into. This needs to be taken in a more metaphysical or internal focus as to where do you fit. This is based on the individual's drive. It truly is. It comes down to drive entirely. But just because you're in a bad spot, just because you were raised in a spot where, I'm going to say it, I mean no harm by this, you were raised in a trailer park. doesn't mean you can't finish in the White House. I know I said it. That's not what I mean, though. I'm not like bagging on those people.
I love the Double Wide trailer. I learned to watch football in an asshole. But yeah, cool. I get it.
That's just the best way that I can explain it in today's world is just because you were born in a trailer park doesn't mean you can't live in a castle.
Oh yeah,
it really doesn't.
Most definitely.
But that is entirely, without beyond a shadow of a doubt, that is entirely up to the person, not necessarily the environment they were raised. And that's, to me, my biggest takeaway from this, outside of understanding the classes of mankind, which when you look at the world this way, your life gets a whole lot easier. Especially in a management or in a working environment. And you start to take this into practice and go, okay, I know this person. I know they will give me the minimum effort, minimum result. And I trust them with this task. And you say, yeah, I don't care. It just needs to get done. Cool. Give it to them. Give them that task. But then you look at it in a different light. Okay, this is important. It needs to be well done. It needs to have these things. This is what I need out of it. Who can I give this to? Who could I manage or lead into this role? Because I don't like the word manage. Managing people sucks. Don't manage people. They don't like it. Just because you have the title of a manager does not mean that you should be a manager. Be a leader. But you can take those projects, those tasks to that person that you know will put in effort. They will try because they're trying to grow too. And if you're leading them, you're right there next to them helping. And now you're both learning. Now you've grown. Now you're on your way to that potential next tier, if that's your goal. If you're happy with where you're at, by all means, do that. But when you look at the world in this way, life gets a lot easier. It's crazy. Because you learn where your expectations should be to gauge them.
Now we've talked about going up. Is it possible going down?
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And it's so comfortable.
I was just gonna say it's a lot easier going down than going up. You know, when you're going down a hill, you know, you're climbing, you're at the top of a hill. It's easier going down than it is climbing up. All you have to do is let gravity do the work when you're going down. But when you're going up, you have to fight gravity.
I'm glad you said gravity.
The gravity of every situation.
Yes. Now,
And you know what? Sometimes you fall, but sometimes it's a slide, man. Like it's smooth.
now there's that aspect of it. Now, we've all heard the stories. It's a common, what's it called, trope in modern literature, writing, and movies to have the millionaire, billionaire son just be a total fuck up and have no drive to do shit. And we all laugh about it because it's often like comedy style movies that do this.
Billy Madison.
Sure. Yeah, we can go with that. But you watch this, oh, you were raised in this environment. You should have every tool you ever need to do anything. You've got all this, blah, 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 blah. And you just watch them go, and they're living in the trailer park, for lack of a better way to put it, because they had no drive. And that's why it's more important on the personal drive than it is your environment.
This guy over here throwing more shade at a trailer park than a fucking hurricane. Damn.
Well, the hurricane wiped it out. I didn't need to.
I was gonna say
It's
something
dark
about a
before it
tornado.
dies. Sorry, Rainer. Yeah, it should be a tornado. Fuck off.
I'm sure there's trailer parks in Florida.
Okay, why do hurricanes only happen in Florida?
Well, if they're on the West Coast, they're tsunamis.
No, it's a typhoon. A tsunami is a big old wave. A hurricane is a weather storm. A typhoon is a weather storm. A typhoon is the the same thing of a hurricane. It's just like Eastern, like Japan, Islander, and they say typhoon instead of hurricane.
And to be fair, she did too.
What the hell?
There were trailer parks in Florida. They were swept to sea. We call them Atlantis now.
Oh. Okay. As I said, I didn't have to. I'm not throwing shade at the trailer parks, okay? Do what you can with what you have. Live your life to the best of your ability. And if you're happy there, I'm happy for you. Good for you. If you're not, fix your shit.
Yeah, and don't give shade, or don't get mad at individuals that have the drive to be more than what they are or where they started from. You can start out from a king and end up as a thrall. You can start as a thrall and end up as king. But if you end up as a king and want to be middle class, you could do that. Or if you end up thrall and you end up middle class, that's fine. If you born middle class and want to stay middle class, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. And we said it before, people throw shade and tie it to race and everything like that. As we've already said, nothing about race. The story is, when it comes down to being an amazing story about the classes of man that were already created from Odin Villive, it's how can you define a mindset that they have? You have X amount of people, but how can you be productive about it? And I see Rig as the company owner, and is like just sectioning off individuals to make it more efficient and more structured. And that's how I see it. Before Rig came into play, yes, there was, kings and everything like that, or leaders, but they were just self-proclaimed leaders. Now it's structured. That's how I kind of see it.
Slight reflection in like the rings and not rings. A marriage was just verbal, and then eventually there became rings and representation. It's the same as a self-proclaimed leader and the adornmentship of wealth to be that leader. Another thing you said was, going from a king or whatever else and becoming a fool. A really good example of that is something that is a really good example of that, which is not what we're necessarily representing here, is Siddhartha Gautama. Siddhartha Gautama was I'm gonna fuck this up. An Indian prince who wanted for nothing, was never literally allowed to leave the kingdom or his palace, not the kingdom, his palace, because he was a child. His parents wanted him to die. He was literally a prince. This is a real person that existed. Sorry. Siddhartha Gautama, basically when he was old enough, he started doing this monkhood type of mentality. Now I say mentality because at the time monks didn't exist. And during that time, this was unheard of anyway, but he gave up his wealth, and essentially he ran away from home, but he really just walked out the front doors and chose to become a beggar, chose to do these things. It's very easy to relate to like what we think of Gandhi, but Siddhartha Gautama was an Indian prince that eventually became what people refer to as Buddha. He was the first to be Buddha. Siddhartha Gautama and Buddhism and Buddha in itself is not a one and only. Buddhism is a state of mind. It is not a state of mind, but it's a state of reality. It's an enlightenment form. It's that level of enlightenment that you can become a Buddha. Anybody can become Buddha in its sense. But Siddhartha Gautama was a prince that gave everything up to choose to serve the public, to choose to do these things, to basically take everything from him, to learn who he is as a person, and in doing so, reach an enlightenment that is now revered to and commonly practiced as Buddhism. So that's like a big way of saying you can go from king to cobbler if you want to do that, but also in that sense, you'll never be happier than you have before. You could reach a sense of enlightenment that no wealth could buy you that you could have in your previous life. So that's one of the examples of the opposite direction being a positive.
Yeah, 100%. If you guys ever, I strongly encourage anyone to research Siddhartha Gautama's life and Buddhism as a whole, because it is great in finding inner peace, in finding tranquility inside yourself and your station, in finding who you are and finding your own version of enlightenment. It's a great practice to uphold. I'm not saying, fuck it, if you're Buddhist, go Buddhist. I don't care. But it's a good tool. And it's a great way of life.
It's called the Eightfold Path, and it is really great. Before I found my way to the gods, Buddhism is something that I very much practiced, like religiously. Yes, I did. I practiced it a lot. Spent a lot of time with Buddhist monks over in Thailand. There's a few in the United States where I am originally from. There's only 2 in the entire state, but one is an actual Buddhist practicing temple. So very cool. Even though I thought it was what I would be, everyone has that feeling of want and maybe this is my path. As much as I felt that, it wasn't my pull. It related to me on a lot of levels, but not enough to a core level. It basically was where I thought I should be, but not who I was at the time. And finding my way back to where I am now is what took me out of a monastery and into a mead hall. So it's been pretty good from there, though. But yeah, I don't know. What else you got, Rain Raven?
I was just going to say, any closing thoughts on the Leverg, other than what we've previously said? I have nothing more to add. I think if I were to just keep on rambling, it would just be beating a dead horse. So that's how you get meat tender.
You're eating horses? Is that the secret to getting as big as you are? I'm just trying to figure it out.
Well, you gotta have good genes. And you can't be a
I can buy
midget.
those.
I wear Wranglers.
Yeah. I was going to say, I can buy those from where White Wolf works, so.
I mean, you guys know how I dress, so apparently that's not it.
It makes me so upset.
It really does. It irritates the fuck out of me. I'm not going to lie.
What? That when I go to work, it's just what I wear?
Oh, no. I picked you up from work and I can't with that shit.
Well, so, right. Before we, that'll be something after. But that's our White Wolf's favorite story, and in the next segment, it will be Sigvidir or my favorite story, and we'll read it, we'll analyze, and give some details behind it, and more of a deeper meaning from a Gothar's perspective.
Yay! Fun.
Yay.
Have a great week, everybody.
Thank you, and you guys have an amazing time. Thanks for waiting for us from our extended vacation unattended, and
sorry.
can't wait to hear back from you guys. Thank you and have a good one.